How to get through the day when you feel low. One step at a time. You don't need to fix your life today. You don't need motivation. You don't need to feel hopeful. You just need to get through this day. One step, one moment, one decision that doesn't make things worse. This book is not about feeling better. It's about staying with yourself until you do. Introduction. There are days when everything feels heavy, when getting out of bed feels like lifting a weight you don't have the strength for, when the simplest tasks, showering, eating, answering a text, feel overwhelming, and the world doesn't stop for those days. It keeps moving, it keeps asking things of you, and you're supposed to keep going too, but you don't know how. This book is for those days, the low days. The ones where you're not in crisis, but you're not okay either. Where nothing is technically wrong, but everything feels hard. You're not depressed in the clinical sense, or maybe you are. But that's not what this is about. This is about the state, the heaviness, the flatness, the feeling that you're moving through water while everyone else is moving through air. And the question that sits with you all day: how do I get through this? Most books about low moods want you to understand them, to trace them back to their origin, to learn coping strategies for the long term, to build resilience and reframe your thinking and practice gratitude. And maybe that's useful eventually, but not today. Today you just need to make it to tonight. You need to get through your obligations without falling apart. You need to be alone with yourself without spiraling. You need to exist without it feeling unbearable. That's what we're here for. This book won't tell you to think positive. It won't tell you that everything happens for a reason or that you just need to change your perspective. It won't ask you to be grateful or productive or hopeful. It will just walk you through the day, hour by hour, moment by moment, with the gentleness you're not giving yourself. Because on low days, you need gentleness more than you need solutions. You need permission more than you need plans. You need to know that getting through is enough. And it is. The chapters ahead are short, focused. You can read them in order, or you can skip to the part of the day you're struggling with most. Morning, midday, night. Wherever you are, there's something here for you. We'll talk about what makes low days so hard, why simple things feel impossible, why your thoughts get louder when your energy is low, and what to do not to fix it, but just to stay steady. We'll talk about how to function when you have to, how to rest when you can, how to be with yourself when being with yourself feels uncomfortable. And we'll talk about something no one says enough: that survival is a form of strength, that getting through a low day is an accomplishment, that you're not failing just because you don't feel good. You don't have to believe any of this yet. You don't have to feel better by the end. You just have to stay here. Stay with the words, stay with yourself. One step at a time. Let's begin. Part I: Understanding the Low State. Chapter 1. This is a low day, not a broken life. A low day can feel like a low future. It isn't. When you wake up feeling low, your mind doesn't just register the feeling. It interprets it. It makes it mean something. And what it usually makes it mean is: this is how things are now. This is how they'll always be. One bad morning becomes a bad life. One heavy feeling becomes proof that nothing will ever feel light again. But that's not true. It's just what low energy does to your thinking. When you're tired, not just physically tired, but emotionally and mentally drained, your brain doesn't process information the same way. It doesn't have the resources to hold nuance, to consider context, to remember that feelings change. So it defaults to the simplest, darkest explanation. It takes the immediate feeling and extends it into forever. It takes one data point and builds a whole story around it. This is called global thinking, and it's one of the most dangerous patterns that happens on low days. Global thinking sounds like this: I always feel this way. Nothing ever works out. I'll never have energy again. Everyone else can handle life. I can't. It takes a specific, temporary state and makes it universal, permanent, absolute. And when you're already low, when you're already struggling, that kind of thinking makes everything worse. Because now you're not just dealing with today. You're dealing with the belief that every day will be like this. That there's no way out, no way forward, no point in trying. But here's the truth: a low day is just a low day. It's not a verdict on your life. It's not proof that you're broken. It's not evidence that things will never get better. It's just today, this specific collection of hours, this particular state your system is in right now. And tomorrow could be different. Not because you did anything right, not because you earned it, just because states change, energy shifts. What feels impossible today might feel manageable next week. You don't know yet, and that's okay. The work on low days isn't to convince yourself that everything is fine. It's to stop letting one feeling define everything. To notice when your mind starts globalizing. When it starts turning "I feel bad today" into "I am bad," or "my life is bad," or "everything is bad." And to gently interrupt that. Not with forced optimism, not with affirmations you don't believe. Just with a small, quiet correction. I feel low today. That's all I actually know. You don't have to believe things will get better. You just have to stop believing they definitely won't. You don't have to feel hopeful. You just have to hold space for the possibility that this isn't permanent. That's all. Low days lie to you. They tell you that the heaviness is who you are, that the struggle is the truth of your life, that this is all there is. But it's not. It's just what today feels like. And today will end, and another day will begin, and that day might feel different. You don't have to wait for proof. You don't have to see evidence. You just have to resist the urge to write the ending while you're still in the middle. Pause. This is a low day, not a broken life, just a low day. And you can get through a day. Slow pause. Chapter 2. When everything feels heavier than it should. It's not that life got harder. You got tired. On a good day, making breakfast is just making breakfast. On a low day, it's a series of impossible decisions. What to eat, whether to eat, whether you even deserve to eat something you enjoy, or if you should just force down whatever's easiest. On a good day, responding to a text is automatic. On a low day, you read it 17 times and still can't figure out what to say. Every word feels too much or not enough, so you don't respond at all. And then you feel guilty about that. On a good day, you can get through your work without thinking about it. On a low day, every task feels like climbing a mountain. You start something and stop. Start again and stop again. And by the end, you've barely done anything and you're exhausted anyway. Nothing actually changed. The tasks are the same. The demands are the same. But you're different. You're tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. There are two kinds of exhaustion, physical and emotional. Physical exhaustion is what happens when your body needs rest. You've been moving, working, doing too much. And when you rest, you recover. Emotional exhaustion is different. It's what happens when you've been carrying too much for too long. Not just tasks, but feelings, decisions, uncertainty. The weight of being responsible for yourself and sometimes other people too. The constant low-level stress of existing in a world that never stops asking things of you. And that kind of exhaustion doesn't go away with a nap. When you're emotionally exhausted, everything takes more energy than it should. Because you're not just doing the thing, you're also managing the internal resistance to doing the thing. You're negotiating with yourself, convincing yourself, overriding the part of you that just wants to stop. And that negotiation is invisible. No one sees it. No one knows how much effort it takes just to show up. Just to keep going, just to not completely shut down. But you feel it, every minute. This is why simple things feel impossible. Not because you're weak. Not because you're lazy, but because your system is running on empty. And when you're running on empty, tasks that normally cost 1 unit of energy now cost 5, 10, 20. Getting out of bed, deciding what to wear, making a phone call, all of it becomes heavy. All of it feels like too much. And then you blame yourself for that. You think other people can do this. Why can't I? But other people aren't carrying what you're carrying. They're not as tired as you are. Or if they are, they're struggling too. They're just better at hiding it. You're not broken because simple things are hard. You're just tired. And when you're tired, everything is harder. That's not a character flaw. It's just how energy works. The problem is, most of us don't give ourselves permission to acknowledge that. We compare our hard days to other people's normal days. We hold ourselves to a standard that assumes we have resources we don't actually have right now. And when we can't meet that standard, we interpret it as failure. But it's not failure, it's just depletion. And the solution isn't to try harder. It's to expect less, to adjust the bar, to accept that today you're working with a smaller capacity. And that's okay. This doesn't mean you give up. It doesn't mean you stop doing anything. It just means you stop pretending you have energy you don't have. You do what you can. You let go of the rest. You forgive yourself for not being superhuman. And you trust that when your energy returns, and it will, eventually things will feel lighter again. Not because the world changed, but because you'll have more to give. For now it's heavy, and that's okay. You don't have to carry it all. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to be okay. You just have to be here, one breath at a time. Chapter 3. The quiet pressure to feel better. Trying to feel better often makes you feel worse. There's a certain kind of pressure that comes with low days. It's quiet, subtle, but it's always there. It's the voice that says you shouldn't feel this way. You have so much to be grateful for. Other people have it worse. Just think positive. Just go for a walk. Just do something that makes you happy. Just. As if feeling better is a simple choice you're refusing to make. And maybe some of that pressure comes from other people. The well-meaning friend who doesn't understand. The family member who thinks you just need to snap out of it. The culture that tells you that happiness is a matter of effort and you're just not trying hard enough. But most of the time, the pressure comes from you. You're the one telling yourself you shouldn't feel this way. You're the one who feels guilty for being low. You're the one trying to force yourself into a better mood because you think you're supposed to. And that constant, exhausting effort to feel different than you feel makes the low feel worse. Because now you're not just low, you're also ashamed of being low. You're frustrated with yourself. You're fighting with your own state. And fighting with your state takes energy. Energy you don't have. Energy that could have gone toward just getting through the day. So instead of feeling one hard thing, you're feeling three. The low itself, the shame about the low, and the exhaustion from fighting it. Here's the truth: you don't have to feel better today. You don't have to be grateful. You don't have to look on the bright side. You don't have to think positive or shift your perspective or find the lesson. You can just feel low, without making it mean anything, without trying to fix it. You can let it be here. Letting it be here doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean wallowing. It doesn't mean you're going to feel this way forever. It just means you stop adding resistance on top of the feeling. You stop fighting with yourself. You stop demanding that you be different. You stop treating the low like an emergency that needs to be solved right now. You just let it exist, safely, without judgment. This is hard for most people, because we've been taught that negative feelings are problems. That if we feel bad, we need to do something about it immediately. But feelings aren't problems, they're just states. And states pass, not because you force them to, just because they do. The fastest way through a feeling is often to stop fighting it, to stop trying to make it go away, to just let it move through you at its own pace. This doesn't mean you do nothing. You can still take care of yourself. You can still do the things that might help rest. Move your body gently, reach out to someone safe. But you do those things from a place of care, not pressure, not from I have to fix this, but from I'm going to be kind to myself while this is here. There's a difference. When you stop trying to feel better, something strange happens. The urgency eases, the panic about the feeling lessens. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes the feeling itself starts to soften. Not because you did anything to fix it, but because you stopped making it worse. You stopped piling shame and frustration on top of it. You stopped treating it like evidence of failure. You just let it be. And in that space, there's a little more room to breathe. You don't have to feel better today. You don't have to be okay. You just have to stop demanding that you be something other than what you are right now. And that might be the gentlest thing you do all day. Part 7: Getting Through the Morning. Chapter 4. The first decision of the day. The day is decided by the first gentle choice. The first moments of a low day are the hardest. You open your eyes, and immediately, you feel it, the weight, the flatness, the sense that you don't have what it takes to get through today. And in that moment, you make a decision, usually without realizing it. You either move toward yourself with gentleness, or you move toward yourself with judgment. And whichever way you move sets the tone for everything that follows. Most people, when they wake up feeling low, immediately start cataloging everything they need to do, everything they should do, everything they're probably not going to be able to do. They think about work, responsibilities, the texts they haven't answered, the things they've been putting off, all the ways they're already behind. And they feel the gap between what's expected of them and what they actually have to give. And that gap feels unbearable. So they do one of two things. Either they try to push through to force themselves into action, to override the low with sheer willpower, or they shut down completely, pull the covers back over their head, decide the day is already lost. Both of these responses come from the same place, the belief that they have to be different than they are. That feeling low is unacceptable, that they need to either fix it or give up. But there's a third option. The third option is to start with one small, gentle choice. Not a choice that fixes anything. Not a choice that makes you feel better. Just a choice that doesn't make things worse. You don't ask yourself, how am I going to get through this entire day? You ask yourself, what's one thing I can do right now that feels okay? Maybe it's getting out of bed. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just sitting up, or stretching, or opening the curtains. Maybe it's drinking a glass of water, or washing your face, or putting on clothes that don't feel suffocating. It doesn't matter what the thing is. What matters is that it's small enough to be doable, and gentle enough that it doesn't feel like punishment. The goal is not to build momentum, not to trick yourself into feeling motivated. The goal is just to take one step that keeps you connected to the day without overwhelming you. Because once you take that first step, once you prove to yourself that you can do one small thing, the next thing feels slightly less impossible. Not easy, but less impossible. This is not about productivity. It's not about getting things done. It's about moving through the morning in a way that doesn't destroy you. You're not trying to have a good day. You're just trying to have a survivable one. And survival starts with not demanding too much of yourself in the first hour. Here's what not to do when you wake up low. Don't immediately check your phone. Don't scroll. Don't look at messages or emails or the news. Don't let the world flood in before you've even oriented to yourself. Don't start making plans for how you're going to fix how you feel. Don't jump into problem-solving mode. Don't tell yourself you need to exercise or meditate or do the thing that's supposed to make you feel better. Don't compare today to how you felt yesterday or how you hope to feel tomorrow. Just be here. Just notice. Just take one breath and ask yourself what one gentle thing would feel okay. And if nothing feels okay, that's information too. That tells you today is a day for minimum effort, for the bare minimum, for survival mode. And that's allowed. The first decision of the day doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be right. It just has to be kind. Kind to the version of you that woke up feeling heavy. Kind to the part of you that doesn't want to do this. Kind to the system that's asking, quietly, for a little more gentleness than usual. That kindness sets the tone. Not for a perfect day, but for a bearable one. And sometimes bearable is enough. Chapter 5. Doing less without giving up. Doing less is not failing, it's adapting. On a low day, you have to redefine what counts as enough. Because if you hold yourself to the same standard you'd hold yourself to on a good day, you'll fail, not because you're not capable, but because you don't have the same resources. And when you fail to meet that standard, you'll feel worse. You'll interpret it as proof that you're falling behind, that you can't keep up, that something is wrong with you, but nothing is wrong with you. You're just operating with less. And when you have less, you have to do less. That's not failure, that's adaptation. The problem is, most people don't know how to do less without feeling like they're giving up. They think there are only two options: push through or collapse. All or nothing, but there's a middle path. A place where you're still moving forward, still showing up, but not at the cost of your entire system. It's called minimum viable effort. Minimum viable effort means asking yourself, what's the least I can do today that still counts as moving forward? Not the most, the least. What's the smallest version of this task that still gets it done? What's the simplest way through this day that doesn't require energy you don't have? You're not aiming for excellence. You're not aiming for completion. You're aiming for enough. Maybe that means responding to one email instead of clearing your inbox. Maybe it means showing up to the meeting but not contributing much. Maybe it means eating something even if it's not a real meal. Maybe it means brushing your teeth even if you don't shower. Maybe it means doing your work at 60% instead of 100. Maybe it means saying no to everything that isn't essential. Maybe it means letting some things slide and trusting that you can pick them up later when you have more to give. This is not about lowering your standards forever. It's about adjusting them for today, for this specific state, for the energy you actually have, not the energy you wish you had. And that adjustment isn't lazy. It's intelligent, because if you push too hard when you're already low, you don't just get through the day, you crash. And then tomorrow is even harder. And the day after that. And you end up in a cycle where you're constantly depleting yourself and never recovering. But if you do less, if you pace yourself, if you protect your energy, you give yourself a chance to stabilize, to not get worse, and eventually, to start getting better. Doing less also means letting go of the idea that productivity equals worth. You are not more valuable when you accomplish more. You are not less valuable when you rest. Your worth is not measured by your output. It's not measured by how much you get done or how well you perform or how little you struggle. You have worth just because you exist, just because you're here. And that worth doesn't change based on what kind of day you're having. On low days, you need to remember that, because your mind will try to tell you otherwise. It will tell you that you're falling behind, that you're not doing enough, that everyone else is managing and you're not. But that's not true. Everyone else is also struggling sometimes. They're just not always visible about it. And the version of you that you're comparing yourself to, the productive, energetic, capable version, isn't gone. It's just resting. It will come back when you've had time to recover, when your system has had time to reset. But for now, you don't have access to that version, and that's okay. You work with what you have. You do what you can. You let the rest wait. And you trust that doing less today doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're being smart. It means you're listening to your body instead of overriding it. It means you're taking care of yourself in the only way that actually works. Minimum viable effort, not maximum, not perfect, just enough. And on a low day, enough is everything. Chapter 6. When you have to function anyway. You can feel low and still show up. The hard truth about low days is that the world doesn't stop. You still have work. You still have responsibilities. You still have people depending on you. And you still have to show up, even when showing up feels impossible. This is the part no one really talks about. How to function when you feel like you can't. How to get through the obligations when everything inside you is heavy and slow and resistant. There's no good answer, no trick that makes it easy. But there are ways to make it more bearable. First, you have to separate functioning from feeling okay. You don't have to feel okay to function. You can feel terrible and still do what needs to be done. They're not mutually exclusive. You're allowed to feel low while you're working, while you're talking to people, while you're moving through the motions of the day. You don't have to perform wellness. You don't have to pretend you're fine. You just have to be present enough to do the minimum. And the minimum is smaller than you think. When you're at work and the weight is there, you don't try to do everything perfectly. You just try to do the next thing. The next email, the next task, the next 5 minutes. You narrow your focus. You don't think about the whole day. You don't think about everything on your list. You just think about what's directly in front of you. And when that's done, you think about the next thing. One task, one moment, one tiny unit of time. You also conserve energy in ways no one else notices. You don't engage in conversations you don't have to engage in. You don't volunteer for extra work. You don't offer more than what's required. You respond to messages with one sentence instead of three. You nod and agree instead of contributing ideas. You say, "I'll get back to you on that," instead of making decisions on the spot. You're not being rude. You're not being lazy. You're just protecting the small amount of energy you have so you can make it through. If you're in a meeting and your mind is foggy, you let yourself zone out slightly. You listen for the main points. You take notes even if you don't fully process them. You trust that if something is truly important, it will come up again. You don't push yourself to be brilliant. You don't push yourself to impress anyone. You just show up, you be there, and that's enough. And if someone asks if you're okay, you have a script ready. "I'm just a little tired today." That's it. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't have to disclose what's really happening. You can keep it vague and move on. Most people won't push, and if they do, you can smile and redirect. "I'll be fine. Just need to get through the day." The hardest part of functioning while low is the internal narrative. The voice that says you're faking it, that you're not really capable, that everyone can see through you. But they can't. People are focused on themselves, on their own tasks, their own stress. They're not watching you as closely as you think. And even if they notice you're quieter or slower or less engaged than usual, most of them will just assume you're having an off day, which you are. They won't think less of you. They won't judge you. They'll just move on with their own day. You also give yourself permission to take breaks. Real breaks. If you can step outside for 5 minutes, you do. If you can close your eyes at your desk for 30 seconds, you do. If you can hide in the bathroom and just breathe, you do. You don't have to be on all the time. You just have to be on enough to get through the necessary moments. And in between those moments, you rest. Even if that rest is just closing your eyes and letting yourself not think for a minute. At the end of the day, when you've made it through, you don't review everything you didn't do. You don't critique your performance. You don't compare yourself to how you function on good days. You just acknowledge, "I showed up. I got through it." That's enough. Because it is. You can feel low and still show up. You can feel terrible and still function. And doing that, surviving the day while carrying the weight, is one of the hardest things you can do. You don't get credit for it. No one applauds, but it matters. It matters that you stayed, that you didn't give up, that you kept going even when it felt impossible. That takes strength, more strength than most people realize. Parts have on making it through the middle of the day. Chapter 7. The midday dip no one talks about. The hardest part is often the middle. There's something about the middle of the day that makes everything feel worse. The morning is over, the distraction of starting has worn off, and the end still feels far away. You're just in it, the middle, the long stretch where there's nothing to do but keep going. And on a low day, that's when the weight gets heaviest. In the morning, there's a kind of momentum, even if it's reluctant, even if it's forced. You got out of bed. You started your day. You're moving. But by midday, that momentum is gone. You've already spent what little energy you had, and now you're running on empty with hours still to go. This is when the thoughts get louder, when the fatigue becomes impossible to ignore, when you start wondering how you're going to make it to the end, and the answer isn't always clear. The midday dip is real. It's physiological. Your cortisol levels drop. Your blood sugar dips. Your focus wanes, even on good days. Most people experience a natural slowdown in the afternoon. But on low days, it's not just a slowdown. It's a shutdown. Your body wants to stop. Your mind wants to check out. Everything in you is saying, I can't do this anymore. And yet you have to. So what do? You don't fight it. You don't try to push through with willpower alone. You just find a way to pause, to reset, to give yourself a moment of reprieve before you keep going. This doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be a break you announce to anyone. It can be invisible. You can step away from your desk and walk to the bathroom. Not because you need the bathroom, just because you need to move, to be in a different space for a minute. You can get water. You can step outside. You can stand by a window and look at something that isn't a screen. You can sit in your car for 5 minutes and do nothing. You can close your eyes at your desk and pretend you're thinking. You can stretch. You can breathe. Whatever you can do to interrupt the momentum of the low without making it obvious that's what you're doing. You can also eat something, not because you're hungry, but because your body might need fuel. On low days, a lot of people forget to eat. Or they eat, but it's not enough. And by midday, their system is depleted in a way that makes the low feel worse. You don't have to eat a meal. Just something, a piece of fruit, a handful of nuts, something with protein. Something that gives your body a little bit of what it needs to keep functioning. It won't fix the low, but it might take the edge off. The other thing that helps is grounding, bringing yourself back to the present. Because by midday, your mind is usually spiraling, thinking about how much is left, how tired you are, how you're not going to make it, how you always feel this way, how nothing ever gets easier, and those thoughts make the heaviness worse. So you interrupt them, not with argument, not with positivity, just with presence. You notice 5 things you can see. You focus on the weight of your body in the chair. You feel your feet on the ground. You notice the temperature of the air, the sound of your own breathing. You bring yourself back to right now, to this moment, not the whole afternoon, not the rest of the week. Just now, and in this moment right now. You're okay, you're here, you're still going. Sometimes the midday dip isn't about energy, it's about loneliness. You've been functioning all morning, keeping it together, not letting anyone see. And by midday, the isolation of that catches up with you. You realize you've been alone with this all day, and you still have hours to go. And no one knows, no one sees, no one is coming to help. And that realization makes everything feel heavier. If that's what you're feeling, you can reach out. Not for a long conversation, not for comfort you don't actually believe. Just for connection. You can text someone. Something simple. Hey, how's your day? You can call someone on your break. Not to talk about the low. Just to hear a voice that isn't your own. You can go somewhere with people. A coffee shop, a store. Just to be around others, even if you don't interact. Sometimes, just not being completely alone helps. But if reaching out feels like too much, you don't have to. You can just acknowledge the loneliness. Let it be there without making it mean something. I feel alone right now. That's hard. But I'm still okay. You don't have to fix it. You just have to not let it convince you that you can't keep going. The middle of the day is hard, but it's not the whole day. It's just the middle, and the middle always ends. You will get to the other side, not because you felt better, just because time moves. And eventually the middle becomes the end. And the end is when you can finally stop. For now, you just have to stay. One more hour, one more task, one more moment. You can do that. Chapter 8. Small anchors that keep you here. You don't need hope, you need anchors. On low days, hope can feel impossible. You can't imagine feeling better. You can't see a way forward. The future feels blank or heavy or just more of the same. And people tell you to be hopeful, to think about tomorrow, to remember that things will get better. But you can't access that. It's too far away, too abstract. You don't need hope right now. You need something smaller, something immediate. You need anchors. An anchor is something that keeps you tethered to the present, something that reminds you that you're still here, that you're still okay even if you don't feel okay. It's not about the future. It's not about feeling better. It's just about staying. Anchors can be tiny. They can be rituals that take less than a minute. They can be objects, sensations, routines, anything that creates a moment of steadiness and continuity for the fifth middle of the heaviness. The important thing is that they're consistent, that you can rely on them, that when everything feels chaotic or overwhelming, you have something you can return to. For some people, an anchor is a cup of coffee in the morning. Not the caffeine, just the ritual. The warmth of the cup in their hands. The familiar taste. The few minutes of sitting and doing nothing else. For others, it's a walk. The same route every day, the same pace. The rhythm of their feet on the ground. The way the movement clears their head just slightly. For others, it's music. A specific song or album that feels safe, that they can listen to and know exactly what's coming next. Anchors work because they create predictability, and when you're low, when everything feels uncertain and out of control, predictability is calming. It tells your nervous system this is familiar, this is safe, we know what comes next. And in that small moment of knowing, there's relief. You can also create micro rituals throughout the day. Tiny moments that signal to yourself, I'm still here. I'm still taking care of myself. Every time you drink water, you pause for 3 seconds and notice the feeling of it. Every time you wash your hands, you focus on the temperature. Every time you sit down, you take one slow breath before you start the next thing. These moments don't fix anything, but they punctuate the day with presence, with awareness, with tiny reminders that you're not completely lost. Another kind of anchor is a person, not someone you have to talk to or explain yourself to, just someone who exists in your life in a steady way. Maybe it's a friend who always responds to your texts, even if you don't say much. Maybe it's a coworker who says good morning every day. Maybe it's a family member who calls at the same time every week. You don't have to tell them about the low. You don't have to ask for help. You just let their presence remind you that you're connected to something outside yourself, that you're not as alone as you feel. Physical objects can be anchors too. A stone you keep in your pocket, a bracelet you wear, a photo you look at. It's not about the object itself. It's about the association, about what it represents. Safety, stability, a reminder that you felt okay before and you can feel okay again. When you're spiraling, when the thoughts are loud, you can touch the object, hold it, let it bring you back. The point of anchors is not to make you feel better. It's to keep you from falling completely into the low. To give you something to hold on to when everything else feels like it's slipping away. You're not hoping for a miracle. You're just staying present, staying here, staying with yourself, and that's enough. You don't need a lot of anchors. Just one or two that work for you, that feel natural, that don't require effort. And over time, those anchors become part of your system, part of how you navigate low days, part of how you stay steady when everything inside you feels unsteady. You don't need hope, you just need something to hold on to. And you have that. Chapter 9. When your thoughts turn against you. Low energy invites loud thoughts. One of the hardest parts of low days is what happens in your mind. The thoughts that show up. The ones that tell you everything that's wrong with you in your life. They're not new thoughts. You've probably heard them before. But when you're low, they're louder, sharper, more convincing, and it's hard not to believe them. When you don't have energy, your mind doesn't have the resources to filter, to fact-check, to hold perspective. So it just accepts whatever comes up. And what comes up is usually the worst version of everything. You think about a mistake you made and your mind tells you always mess things up. You think about how tired you are and your mind tells you you're never going to feel normal again. You think about the future and your mind tells you nothing is ever going to get better. These thoughts feel like truth. They feel like insight. Like you're finally seeing things clearly. But they're not truth. They're just what low energy sounds like. When you're depleted, your brain defaults to the negative. It's a survival mechanism. When resources are low, your system becomes hypervigilant. It looks for threats. It assumes the worst. It prepares for danger. And that means your thoughts skew dark. Not because your life is dark, just because your state is. The problem is you can't argue with these thoughts. Not when you're low, because they feel too real, too convincing. If you try to counter them with positive thoughts, it doesn't work. Your mind just dismisses the positive as fake, as wishful thinking, so you need a different strategy. The strategy is not to debate the thoughts. It's to contain them. You notice the thought. You acknowledge it's there, and then you set it aside. Not because it's wrong, just because now is not the time to engage with it. You say to yourself, that's a thought. I'm having that thought. I don't have to follow it. This is called mental noting. You're not analyzing. You're not arguing. You're just labeling, catastrophizing, self-criticism, future tripping, rumination. You name the type of thought without engaging with the content. And that small act of naming creates distance. You're no longer inside the thought. You're observing it, and observation gives you choice. You can also remind yourself that thoughts on low days are not reliable. You wouldn't make a major life decision when you're drunk. You wouldn't trust your judgment when you've been awake for 48 hours. And you shouldn't trust your thoughts when you're emotionally depleted. Not because they're meaningless, but because they're distorted, shaped by a state that makes everything look worse than it is. This doesn't mean you ignore your thoughts completely. Some of them might be pointing to something real, something that does need attention, but you can't tell the difference when you're in the middle of a low day, so you just table it. You say, I'll think about this later, when I have more energy, when I'm in a better state, and then you let it go. If the thoughts are relentless, if they keep looping no matter what you do, you can try externalizing them. You can write them down, not to analyze them, just to get them out of your head. You write, I'm thinking I'm never going to feel okay again. And then you close the notebook. And you let the thought stay on the page instead of circling in your mind. Or you can say them out loud, to yourself or to someone you trust. I'm having the thought that I'm falling behind. When you externalize it like that, it becomes less absolute. It's not I am falling behind. It's I'm having the thought that I'm falling behind. And that distinction matters, because thoughts aren't facts. They're just mental events, things that pass through. Another tool is redirection. When the thought shows up, you don't fight it. You just shift your attention. You focus on something sensory. The texture of the fabric you're touching, the sound of rain, the taste of water. You focus on a task. Something simple and repetitive, folding laundry, washing dishes, organizing something. You're not trying to distract yourself forever. You're just giving your mind something else to do for a few minutes, so the thought doesn't have room to grow. The most important thing to remember is this: you don't have to believe everything you think, especially on low days. Your thoughts are loud, but they're not truth. They're just noise, shaped by fatigue and depletion and a nervous system that's trying to protect you in the only way it knows how. You can let them be there without letting them run you. You can notice them, name them, and let them pass. And on the other side, when you have more energy, you'll think about the same things and they won't feel nearly as heavy. For now, you just don't engage. You just stay present, stay here, and let the thoughts move through. Part of finishing the day without collapsing. Chapter 10. Ending the day gently. The goal isn't a good day, it's a survivable one. By the time evening comes, you've made it through. You've done what you had to do. You survived the obligations, the tasks, the hours. And now you're alone with yourself again. This is when a lot of people collapse. Not physically, but emotionally. The adrenaline that kept them going all day finally drains away. And what's left is exhaustion and emptiness. And the temptation is to judge the day, to review everything you didn't do, to feel disappointed that you didn't feel better, to tell yourself the day was wasted. But that's not true. A day where you survived is not a wasted day. A day where you kept going, even when it was hard, is not a failure. You didn't have a good day, but you had a survivable one, and that's what you needed. Ending the day gently means letting go of the expectation that you should have done more, that you should have felt different, that you should have been better. You did what you could with the energy you had. And that's enough. You don't need to review your performance. You don't need to critique yourself. You just need to acknowledge I made it through. And then you rest. But resting on a low day isn't always easy. Because even though you're tired, your mind might still be loud. Your body might still be tense. And there's this underlying hum of discomfort that doesn't go away just because the day is over. So you have to be intentional about how you end the day, about how you transition from functioning to resting. First, you give yourself permission to do less than you planned. Maybe you were going to cook dinner, but now the thought of cooking feels impossible. So you don't. You eat something simple, something that requires no effort. Maybe you were going to clean or work on a project, or catch up on things, but you don't have it in you, so you don't. You let those things wait, because they're not more important than your well-being. They're not more important than ending the day without collapsing. You also let go of the idea that you have to be productive until the moment you go to bed. You can just be. You can sit and do nothing. You can lie down and stare at the ceiling. You can exist without purpose for a while. That's allowed. If you need something to occupy your mind, you choose something gentle. Something that doesn't demand anything from you. Not something stressful. Not something that makes you think too much. Just something soothing. A show you've seen before. A podcast that's calming. Music that doesn't stir anything up, or nothing. Silence is okay too. You might also do something small to mark the end of the day. A tiny ritual that signals to your system the day is done. We can let go now. You change into comfortable clothes. You wash your face. You make tea. You light a candle. It doesn't matter what it is. Just something that creates a boundary between the day and the night, between functioning and resting. And if the emotions come, if you feel sadness or frustration or grief about how hard the day was, you let them. You don't have to fix them. You don't have to make them go away. You just let them move through. You cry if you need to. You sit with the heaviness if that's what's there. You let yourself feel what you feel without judgment. Because holding it in doesn't make it go away. It just makes it heavier. At some point, you'll probably think about tomorrow, about whether it will be like today, about whether you'll wake up feeling the same. And you might, or you might not. But you don't have to figure that out tonight. You don't have to prepare for tomorrow. You don't have to plan how you'll cope. You just have to be here, now, at the end of this day. You made it through, not perfectly. Not easily, but you made it. And that's what matters. You don't have to celebrate it. You don't have to feel proud. You just have to recognize it. You survived today. And for now, that's enough. Chapter 11. Nighttime, when everything gets louder. The night removes distractions and magnifies feeling. Nighttime on a low day is different, harder, because during the day there's noise, there's movement, there are things that demand your attention, even if you don't want to give it. But at night all of that stops, the distractions fall away, and you're left alone with yourself, with your thoughts, with the weight you've been carrying all day, and it feels louder. This is when the sadness deepens. When the loneliness becomes more acute, when the thoughts that were manageable during the day become overwhelming, because there's nothing left to buffer them. No tasks, no people, no obligations, just you, and the feeling fills the space. A lot of people dread nighttime on low days, because they know what's coming. They know the spiral. The thoughts that loop, the emotions that surge, the sense that this will never end. And they try to avoid it. They stay up too late. They scroll endlessly. They watch things that don't matter just to keep their mind occupied. Anything to not be alone with the feeling. But avoidance doesn't make it easier. It just delays it. And by the time you finally lie down, you're even more exhausted, even more depleted, and the feeling is still there. So instead of avoiding, you approach the night differently. You don't try to outrun the feeling. You just make it safer to be with. You create an environment that feels as soothing as possible. Not perfect, just less harsh. You dim the lights. You make your space comfortable. You remove anything that feels chaotic or overwhelming. You're not trying to fix the feeling. You're just trying to make it bearable. If your thoughts are loud, you don't fight them. But you also don't follow them. You let them be there. Like background noise. You don't engage. You don't try to solve what they're saying. You just notice thoughts are loud right now. That's hard, but I don't have to listen to them. If the loneliness is sharp, you can reach out. Even if it's late, even if you think you're bothering someone. You can send a text. You can call a hotline. You can post something anonymously online, just to feel less alone. Or you can imagine someone who cares about you sitting with you. You don't have to believe they're really there. Just the thought of them can be enough to soften the edge. You can also let yourself cry, if that's what wants to come. A lot of people hold back tears all day. They swallow them, push them down, because there's no time, no space, no privacy. But at night, when you're alone, you can let them out. And sometimes crying helps, not because it solves anything, but because it releases some of the pressure, some of the weight, and after, there's a kind of quiet, a kind of emptiness that's different from the heaviness. If you can't sleep, you don't force it. You don't lie there staring at the ceiling, getting more and more frustrated. You get up, you move to a different space. You do something quiet and boring until you feel tired enough to try again. You don't punish yourself for not being able to sleep. You just work with it. And if the night feels endless, if it feels like morning will never come, you remind yourself it will, not because you have hope, just because that's how time works. The night always ends, the sun always rises, and tomorrow will be different. Maybe not better, but different, and different is enough. Nighttime magnifies everything. It makes the low feel lower, the thoughts feel truer, the loneliness feels sharper. But it's not truth. It's just what nighttime does. It amplifies, it distorts, it makes everything feel bigger than it is. And you can know that without it changing how hard it feels. You can just be here, in the hard and the loud, in the dark, and trust that you'll make it to morning, because you always do. Chapter 12. You did not waste this day. Survival is a form of progress. At the end of a low day, there's often a thought that shows up, quietly, persistently. I wasted today. You didn't do enough. You didn't accomplish what you wanted. You didn't feel better. You didn't make progress. You just survived, and that doesn't feel like enough. But it is. Survival is not nothing. It's not passive. It's not lazy survival when you're low. When everything feels heavy, when getting through feels impossible, that's active. That's effort. That's strength. You just don't see it that way because it doesn't look like achievement. It doesn't look like productivity. It doesn't look like the kind of progress the world celebrates. But it's progress. You stayed. When part of you wanted to give up, you stayed. You kept going. When everything in you wanted to stop, you kept going. You got through, not perfectly, not easily, but you got through. And that matters. A low day is not a wasted day just because you didn't feel good, just because you didn't accomplish much, just because you moved slowly. A low day is a day where you learned what it's like to keep going when things are hard, where you practice not abandoning yourself, where you proved once again that you can survive discomfort. And those are valuable things, even if they don't feel valuable in the moment. You also have to remember that recovery isn't linear. It's not a straight line from bad to good. It's a messy process with ups and downs and days that feel like backsliding. But those days aren't backsliding. They're just part of the process. You're not starting over every time you have a low day. You're just navigating a hard stretch. And when you get through it, you're still further along than you were before. Because you know more now. You've practiced more. You've survived more. And all of that adds up. Low days also teach you things you can't learn on good days. They teach you what you're capable of, what you can endure, what you need when things are hard. They teach you that you're stronger than you think, that you can function even when you don't feel okay, that you can be gentle with yourself even when your mind is telling you you don't deserve it. Those lessons matter, even if they don't feel like lessons in the moment. And here's something else: you don't have to earn rest. You don't have to accomplish something to deserve to take care of yourself. You don't have to be productive to be worthy of gentleness. You're allowed to have a low day and still treat yourself kindly. You're allowed to do less and still matter. Your worth is not tied to your output. It's not tied to how you feel or how much you do or how well you cope. You have worth just because you exist. And on low days, that's the thing you most need to remember. You did not waste this day. You survived it. And survival on a low day is everything. You stayed when it was hard. You kept going when it felt impossible. You didn't give up. And that's not nothing. That's courage. Part V: Carrying Yourself Forward. Chapter 13. Tomorrow doesn't need a plan yet. You don't need a plan. You need permission to rest. At the end of a low day, there's often a voice that says, I need to do better tomorrow. I need to wake up earlier. I need to be more productive. I need to feel better. I need to have a plan. And so you start planning. You tell yourself what you'll do differently, how you'll approach the day, how you'll make sure tomorrow isn't like today. But that planning, that pressure to have it figured out, just adds more weight. Tomorrow doesn't need a plan yet. You don't need to prepare. You don't need to strategize. You don't need to know how you're going to feel or what you're going to do. You just need to rest. Rest doesn't mean doing nothing. It means releasing the demand that you be different tomorrow than you were today. It means letting yourself off the hook. Letting go of the expectation that you need to fix yourself before the next day begins. You don't. Tomorrow will come whether you're ready or not. And when it does, you'll meet it the same way you met today. One moment at a time. One choice at a time. You don't need a plan for that. You just need to be here. The truth is, trying to control tomorrow is a way of avoiding today. It's a way of saying today wasn't good enough. Tomorrow has to be better. But today was enough. You survived it. You made it through, and tomorrow will be what it is. You can't determine that now. You can only control how you treat yourself in this moment. And in this moment, you need rest. Not planning, not pressure. Just rest. Rest also means trusting that momentum will return on its own. You don't have to force it. You don't have to manufacture motivation. When your system has had enough time to recover, the energy will come back slowly, gradually, without you having to push. But it can't come back if you don't let yourself rest. If you keep demanding more before you've recovered from the depletion. So you let yourself stop. Fully, without guilt. This doesn't mean you do nothing forever. It doesn't mean you give up on moving forward. It just means you don't have to move forward right now. You don't have to have it figured out tonight. You can just be, without a plan, without a timeline, without expectations. And if anxiety about tomorrow shows up, if you start worrying about how you'll feel or what you'll have to do, you can remind yourself, I'll handle tomorrow when it's tomorrow. Right now I'm just here. And that's all I need to be. You don't need a plan. You just need permission to stop trying so hard. To stop demanding so much. To stop treating rest like something you have to earn. You've earned it by getting through today. By surviving the wait, by staying with yourself even when it was hard. Now you rest, and you trust that tomorrow will unfold the way it needs to. Final chapter. One step was enough today. You didn't fall behind today, you stayed. You made it to the end, not easily, not perfectly, but you made it. You woke up feeling heavy, and you got through anyway. You faced the day when facing it felt impossible. You kept going when every part of you wanted to stop. You didn't accomplish everything. You didn't feel good. You didn't have a breakthrough. But you stayed, and that's what mattered. One step was enough today, one moment. One decision that didn't make things worse. You didn't need to fix your life. You didn't need to feel better. You didn't need to have it all figured out. You just needed to get through. And you did. Tomorrow might be easier, or it might not. You don't know yet, and you don't have to. You'll meet tomorrow the same way you met today. One step, one breath, one gentle choice, and you'll get through that day too. Not because you're strong, not because you have some special ability, just because you know how to stay, even when staying is hard. You're not falling behind, you're not failing. You're not broken, you're just human. And humans have low days. Days when everything feels heavier than it should. Days when survival is the only goal. And on those days, survival is enough. You don't have to be better tomorrow. You don't have to be fixed. You don't have to earn the right to rest. You just have to keep doing what you did today. Staying, moving, being gentle with yourself, one step at a time. And when the low lifts, and it will, eventually you'll look back and realize something. You made it through all those days when you thought you couldn't, when it felt impossible, when you were sure you wouldn't survive. You did, and that's not nothing. That's everything. Closing. Stay here for a breath longer. You don't have to feel better yet. Getting through today was enough. And you did that. You stayed with yourself, even when it was hard, even when you didn't want to. You didn't give up. You didn't abandon yourself. You just kept going, one step, one moment, one gentle choice. And that's the only thing you need to do tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. Just stay, just keep going. Just be as gentle with yourself as you can. You're doing better than you think. You're stronger than you know. And you're not alone. Thank you for staying.